How April Fool's Day became a political weapon in the social media age. Every year, on the first day of April, the internet transforms into a battlefield, not one fought with weapons or legislation, but with jokes, fake headlines, and viral moments carefully engineered to make powerful people look foolish. What started as a centuries-old tradition of harmless pranks has quietly evolved into one of the most effective tools in modern political warfare, and most people have no idea how deep this goes. Think about the last time you saw a political meme go viral on April 1st. You probably laughed, shared it, maybe even believed it for a second before realizing the date. But here is the question nobody is asking. But wait, what happens to that image of a politician after you close the app? It stays. It lives in your memory. It shapes even slightly how you feel about that person the next time their name comes up on your screen. That is not comedy. That is influence. And in today's world, influence is power. To understand how we got here, we need to go back, not just to the origin of April Fool's Day itself, but to the moment when political satire stopped being a footnote and became a front-page story. April Fool's Day, as a cultural tradition, traces back to at least the 16th century in Europe. Some historians link it to the shift from the Julian to the Gregorian calendar, when the new year moved from late March to January. Those who still celebrated the new year in April were mocked as fools. Others connect it to ancient spring festivals where chaos and role reversals were celebrated. Whatever its true origin, the core idea was always the same. One day a year, the normal rules are suspended. Anyone can be made to look ridiculous. And crucially, it is expected. It is almost socially approved. For centuries, this was harmless. Newspapers would print absurd fake stories. Television programs would broadcast elaborate hoaxes. In 1957, the BBC famously aired a segment about the Swiss spaghetti harvest, showing people picking pasta from trees, and thousands of viewers believed it and called in asking how to grow their own spaghetti plant. It was innocent, it was clever, and it caused no lasting damage to anyone. But then the internet arrived, and everything changed. The internet did not just accelerate the spread of April Fool's content, it weaponized it. In the pre-digital age, a prank had a natural life cycle. It was aired or printed, people reacted, and within a day or two it was forgotten. There was no archive, there was no algorithm, there was no one saving screenshots at 3 in the morning to deploy 6 months later during an election campaign. Today, every joke, every fake headline, every manipulated clip created on April 1st exists permanently. It can be stripped of its original context. It can be reposted without the date. It can be clipped, edited, slowed down, zoomed in, and presented to a completely different audience as if it were real. The joke does not die on April 2nd anymore. It lives forever in the digital ecosystem, waiting to be rediscovered and redeployed. This is where political operatives, social media strategists, and ideological activists recognize something profound. April Fool's Day is a legal, socially accepted window to create content that damages political opponents. And if that content spreads far enough, it does not matter that it was originally a joke. The emotional impression it leaves is real. Social media platforms operate on one fundamental principle: engagement. Content that makes people feel something strongly gets pushed to more people. Anger, fear, amusement, and outrage all drive engagement. Political humor sits at the intersection of amusement and outrage, which makes it almost algorithmically perfect. A video clip mocking a politician generates more clicks than a serious policy analysis. A fake headline designed to make a public figure look incompetent spreads 10 times faster than a factual correction ever will. Researchers who study misinformation have documented something called the illusory truth effect, the psychological phenomenon where repeated exposure to a claim, even a false one, makes people more likely to believe it over time. Apply this to political satire, and the implications are disturbing. If you see a mocking image of a political leader 10 times across different platforms, even if you consciously know it was originally a joke, some part of your brain begins to associate that person with the emotion that image generates: contempt, ridicule, incompetence. That association does not require conscious belief to influence behavior. It operates below the level of rational thought. This is why April Fool's Day has become such a valuable date on the political calendar. It provides cover. If a piece of satirical content gets too aggressive or too misleading, its creators can always retreat behind the defense. It was a joke. It was April 1st. Everyone knew it was satire. But that defense only works for the creator. It does not undo the impression already formed in the minds of millions of people who encountered the content without that context. The speed at which content travels today means that a satirical post created at midnight on April 1st can reach 50 million people within 6 hours, many of them in time zones or social circles where the April Fool's framing is not immediately obvious. By the time fact-checkers respond, by the time the original creator clarifies the joke, the audience that consumed it uncritically has already moved on. The damage, if damage was intended, is already done. This dynamic has created what media analysts describe as a new category of political content: plausible satire. This is content carefully crafted to walk the line between obvious joke and believable reality. It is not the absurdist humor of spaghetti growing on trees. It is realistic enough to be believed by a significant portion of its audience, while remaining technically defensible as satire to everyone else. The craft involved in creating this content has become sophisticated, and the people creating it often understand exactly what they are doing. Political parties and advocacy groups on all sides of the ideological spectrum have quietly built April 1st content strategies into their annual communications calendars. Not always through official channels, often through networks of anonymous accounts, friendly influencers, and loosely affiliated content creators who operate with plausible deniability. The message goes out, spreads organically, does its work, and by April 2nd, the official organizations can claim they had nothing to do with it. What makes this especially powerful is that humor disarms critical thinking. When we laugh, we lower our defenses. We are not in evaluation mode when we are entertained. We are in reception mode. A piece of content that makes us laugh about a political figure bypasses the skepticism we would apply to a straightforward political attack advertisement. Laughter is a form of agreement. When you laugh at a joke about a politician, some part of you has accepted the premise of that joke, even momentarily. And those momentary acceptances accumulate over time into attitudes, preferences, and ultimately votes. The affected parties in this dynamic are not just politicians. Ordinary citizens are the primary casualties of a media environment flooded with political satire that blurs the line between information and entertainment. When everything is potentially a joke, when the default assumption becomes that anything shocking or embarrassing might be fabricated, trust in all information begins to erode. This is sometimes called epistemic collapse, the breakdown of a shared sense of what is real and what is manufactured. Political satirists did not cause this collapse alone, but April Fool's culture in the digital age has certainly accelerated it. Journalism suffers too. Legitimate news organizations that report on genuine events sometimes find themselves dismissed as running April Fool's content if their story happens to break on the 1st of April. There are documented cases where real and significant news announcements were strategically delayed by one day or strategically released on April 1st by adversaries, precisely to exploit this confusion. Information manipulation does not always involve fabrication. Sometimes it simply involves timing. What happens next in this story depends on choices that platforms, creators, audiences, and regulators are only beginning to grapple with. Some technology companies have experimented with April 1st content labeling, automatically flagging posts created on that date as potentially satirical. Critics argue this is both insufficient and potentially counterproductive, since satire and misinformation are not confined to a single calendar date. Others advocate for stronger media literacy education, equipping audiences with the skills to interrogate content regardless of when or how they encounter it. The deeper challenge is cultural, not technological. We have built a media environment that rewards provocation over precision, entertainment over accuracy, and virality over truth. April Fool's Day did not create those incentives. It simply exposes them in concentrated form once a year. Every joke that goes viral about a political figure on April 1st is a small mirror held up to the larger ecosystem we inhabit every other day of the year. The mechanisms are the same. The scale is simply more visible. There is also a generational dimension worth noting. Younger audiences who have grown up entirely within the social media era approach information differently. They are often more skeptical, more ironic, and more comfortable with ambiguity about what is real. But this comfort with ambiguity can cut both ways. It can produce sophisticated, critical consumers of media, or it can produce individuals who have simply given up on the project of distinguishing truth from fiction altogether. When cynicism replaces critical thinking, bad actors benefit. The most important thing to understand about April Fool's Day in the political context is this: it is not a day off from the information war. It is an intensification of it. The pranksters are not always teenagers with smartphones. Some of them are strategists with budgets, networks, and clear political objectives. The laugh you had this morning at some politician's expense may have been engineered not to entertain you, but to move you, however slightly, in a specific political direction. The question every person who consumes media in the modern age must eventually sit with is not whether any particular piece of content was funny or mean or fair. The question is simpler and more unsettling than that. When you laughed, who benefited?